77% of Ukrainians and 82% of Russians have positive attitude toward the other. Ukrainians and Russians don't hate each other. They share common history, culture, faith, and have millions of families between each other. Why on earth would Putin think it was a good idea to invade a sovereign neighbor when virtually no one asked for it? It's important to make a distinction between people and their governments. Russia's invasion in Ukraine is a self-centered ambition of an authoritarian leader. The defense of Ukraine is an ambition of millions of Ukrainians standing up to a foreign autocrat. I don't see this conflict as just a territorial dispute. I see a young, yet flawed democracy struggling against an old empire ruled by an autocrat. Ukraine is not perfect. Like Russia, corruption and oligarchy have rotten much of the Ukrainian society. But unlike Russians, Ukrainians have been free to choose their own leader that best represents their frustration with the corrupt system. The stark differences between Volodymyr Zelenskiy and Vladimir Putin say a lot about what kind of leaders you can get when you subject them to democratic accountability. There is a big difference between the kind of a leader Zelenskyy is and the kind of a leader Putin is. It's not just their personalities, it's how they rose to power, how they maintain power, how they treat their opposition, respect civil rights, appeal to their people, and what issues they focus on. So let's compare. Putin's rise to power is the definition of a career politician. As a former KGB intelligence officer, Putin spent almost all of his life working for the state. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, he made it close to the mayor of St. Petersburg, which eventually got him near the ruling elites in Moscow. President Boris Yeltsin made him a director of FSB, KGB's successor. Yeltsin liked Putin enough to appoint him as a prime minister in exchange for giving Yeltsin legal immunity for his past criminal convictions once Putin becomes president. Putin gained prestige after brutally suppressing Chechen separatist movement and installing a dictator in Chechnya to quell resistance. Zelenskyy's path to presidency was utterly unorthodox. As an actor and a comedian, Zelenskyy had no political experience until he announced his candidacy only a few months before the election. He won the hearts of the people via a comedy TV series Servant of the People, where he played a teacher who became president fighting the corrupt system run by oligarchs. As soon as Putin became president, he began consolidating power within Moscow, away from Russian regions. He appointed his own surrogates into federal districts and removed regional governors from the Russian parliament. The legitimacy and fairness of every single election in Russia since Putin's first term was called to question. Putin also changed Russian constitution multiple times to allow him to run for presidency again and stay in office longer each term. Zelenskyy, on the other hand, only relied on constitutional powers to enact his policies. He didn't limit the autonomy of local municipalities and mayors even when they challenged his pandemic lockdowns and business closures. Zelenskyy's party servant of the people won a majority in the Ukrainian parliament, but struggled to achieve major victories in regional elections. Putin presented the invasion to Ukraine by lying to his people. Words mentioning war or invasion are censored from the media. It can only be presented as a peacekeeping mission or a military exercise. Many Russians relying on TV as their primary source of information aren't even aware Russia is at war with Ukraine. Putin also isolated himself from the public, and the rare appearances he makes are often pre-recorded and staged. Putin lied about a genocide of Russians in eastern Ukraine and accused the Ukrainian government for being run by Nazis. None of this is true. Zelenskyy's strongest support comes from the east and south of the country, mostly populated by ethnic Russians. Zelenskyy himself is a native Russian born in Ukraine to a Jewish family. Zelenskyy refused to escalate tensions with Russia before the invasion and even told Joe Biden to calm down his fears of the conflict. When Russian soldiers invaded, Zelensky didn't flee the country, but stayed in Kiev. He encouraged his people to fight and defend the country via passionate speeches on social media. He made frequent improvised and official statements to Ukrainians as well as to foreign nations and Putin himself. Zelensky challenged Putin to a debate, which Putin has ignored multiple times and referred to his deputies instead. Zelensky has an authentic following on social media. Even during his candidacy, he largely relied on the use of short speeches he would post on YouTube and Instagram. Zelensky even actively avoided debates on television and debated incumbent Poroshenko only once. That was enough to secure a landslide victory of 73% of the votes in the runoff. Putin, on the other hand, is a man of the television era. He almost exclusively appears on pristine television sets. His appearances are often staged and pre-recorded, and he is never seen improvising social media posts. His mindset is that he needs to portray a strong man, and that's the only way to represent Russia. When Putin took office for the first time, he purged all opposing news stations and media tycoons and installed his own stenographers into the state media. Critical mentions in the news are filtered to the point words and phrases are outright banned. Putin thinks he can achieve the same results by doing the same to the internet. He has banned VPNs, encrypted email providers, blocked Tor, and banned Telegram for 2 years. While foreign tech companies are allowed in Russia, they have to adhere to strict censorship demands and give Putin the ability to throttle access to specific content or users. Ukrainian internet and television are considered mostly free and unfettered. There are oligarchs owning the big media companies, but critical views of the government are not censored. Zelensky himself was banned in the past, mostly due to his appearances in Russian-speaking programs. But now the president calls for more openness and opposes censorship of media content. Putin and Zelensky have vastly different visions for their countries. Putin is a 69-year-old boomer stuck in the mindset of the 20th century, longing for the days of the past Russian glory. He mainly focuses on external threats to Russia and often neglects domestic issues like rampant poverty and corruption. Putin has waged wars in Chechnya, Georgia, Ukraine, Syria, and threatened Baltic states with invasion when they wanted to join NATO. His view of power is best summarized in his own words. The task of the government is not only to pour honey into a cup, but sometimes to give bitter medicine. Zelensky is a young Gen X, almost millennial, with a vision for the country to unite Ukrainians after years of internal unrest. The message of unity is a cornerstone for Zelensky's success. Throughout his candidacy and presidency, Zelensky called for normalization of relations between Ukrainians and Russians. While Putin accused Zelensky of being a puppet of Western powers, Zelensky presented his vision for Ukraine as neither a corrupt partner of the West nor Russia's little sister. On the tensions between Russia and Ukraine, Zelensky once said, "We are different, but it is not a reason to be enemies. We want to build our future ourselves, peacefully, calmly, and honestly." Zelensky is far from perfect, and even despite his massive landslide victories, people lost trust in his presidency. Before the invasion, his approval rating dropped to below 30%. Last year, Pandora Papers revealed Zelensky sought offshore companies to hide his assets. He was accused of evading taxes and was called out on owning lavish properties in central London. Putin's approval rating has fallen since the all-time high, but still remains high at 71%. Economic sanctions and spillover from the invasion could heavily impact these numbers. Russians spontaneously took to the streets in 53 cities to protest the invasion, which was followed by arrests of thousands of people. The invasion portrays Zelensky's presidency as antithetical to everything Vladimir Putin stands for. Zelensky is seen as showing inspiring leadership, while Putin displays maniacal ambitions. Even some among the Russian elite question the necessity of this war. Putin stands alone in this war, while Europe stands united with Ukraine more than ever before. On paper, Putin could have left Russia as a president that elevated the country from a deep recession and inflation in the 1990s and reinstated the nation's global status. Instead, the economic sanctions and negligence of poverty will likely result in the greatest economic collapse in modern Russian history.